Howdy everybody, this is episode 2 of our Gridfinity Baseplate, episode 9 overall of learning FreeCAD with Gridfinity. So today I'm going to show you how to use the attachment offset tool for your sketches. This will mean that you can offset your sketches from a plane, mainly the XY plane, without having to draw an extra datum plane. So let's get started. We're going to select my body, and I'm going to create a sketch. And for this instance, I'm going to select the XY plane, click OK. Now remember, I want to view the section, so I'm going to click that. And now I'm going to draw my rectangle. It's going to be a 2 corners rectangle. And I'm going to set my dimensions. So I'm going to start on my Y dimension here. And I want this to be equal to a variable. So I'm going to reference my variables first. And this is going to be my grid pitch. And I'm going to multiply by my Y variable. Actually, no, I'm not. I should not do that. This is going to remain constant. Yes, I just want this to be 42 millimeters. And right here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I don't want to multiply this by our X and Y units. That'll be a different operation done later. Okay. Now, grid pitch. Here we go, 42 millimeters. Now, what I'm going to do now is create my fillets. So I'm going to press GFF on my keyboard. Here's all my fillets. Press E again to make sure all my fillets are equal. Now, I don't want the Smart Dimension tool. I want to use KO to dimension a diameter. This diameter is going to be, referencing my variables, and I'm going to reference fillet diameter 1 of 8 millimeters. I'm going to close this sketch, and I'm going to call this sketch here, just rename it. I think I should say plate well, I can't say plate offset 1. So I should say plate profile 1. And I'm going to look down here in my properties menu here. I'm going to find this attachment group. And I'm going to select attachment offset. We're going to expand that. And then I'm going to expand position. And I want to edit it in the Z direction. So I'm going to use baseplate variables to do that. So I'm going to say plate offset 1 plus plate offset 2 plus referencing variables plate offset 3. Now that is going to be the same as our height variable here, the length of this pad. So what I could also say instead is I could reference the pad I'm just going to make sure that I didn't give it a custom name. Shame on me if I didn't. Okay, the name is plate volume, so I'm going to say plate volume at length for that property value, and that's 4.65 millimeters. So now we can see that that sketch is attached to the top of this face here. And I can verify that by pressing VT on my keyboard and toggling that transparency, or by pressing spacebar and hiding it entirely. And I can view the front plane and see that it's offset from the origin. So, press my spacebar again, go back to a nice ISO, and I don't actually want that to be transparent. So, I'm going to leave that sketch there for now. I'm going to create another sketch on the XY plane again. And believe it or not, if I select in the model tree here, I can go ahead and edit the attachment offsets. So I'm going to say plate volume. I want to reference that length property minus, you've probably guessed it, referencing my variables, plate offset 1, which would be 2.15 right here. And this is what it solves to. All right, that's taken care of. Now what I can do is I'm wanting to view the section, and this time I'm going to want to reference external geometry. So there's a toolbar up here, or I can press GX on the keyboard, which is what I just did. And I want to reference this edge and this edge. I'll be drawing another two-corner rectangle. And I want my smart dimension tool. I need to know that offset, which is actually, as you probably guessed, going to be this 2.15 millimeters here. So I want plate offset 1. And I'm going to constrain by points once again and do the exact same thing. So plate variables and plate offset 1. Want that to be formatted nicely. Okay, smart dimension tool. I'm going to constrain these 2 points here. And what I want that to be is referencing my pitch variable, so grid pitch. And I want to subtract 2 times this base plate variable group, that's plate offset 1. And we can see that it's perfectly centered here, as it should be. And I'm going to do the same thing with these 2 points. I'm going to take my grid pitch and I'm going to subtract my plate offset 1. Except I forgot to do the most important thing, which is multiply by 2, because we're subtracting it from both edges, not just one edge, which is why you multiply by 2. So it should be 37.7 millimeters. And the reason you multiply by 2 is because you're subtracting that offset from this edge and from this edge, or in the Y case, from this edge and this edge. So you can't just subtract it once. Now I'm going to close my sketch. And I'm just going to hide that again. show you that that attachment offset is already implemented. What I'm just realizing I haven't done is add my fillets. So GFF. Equals on the keyboard. KO for my diameter constraint on the keyboard. Now, I want to attach this to another variable, which is going to be fillet diameter 2. And you can see how these two diameters here are concentric now. We actually want that. I'm going to close this sketch, and now we have it perfectly filleted. I'm going to rename this plate profile 2. And I'm going to sketch another sketch on the XY plane. This sketch is going to be a carbon copy of the last sketch to generate this vertical line, not there on the stacking lip, but down here on the base plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find it on the toolbar up here because I don't remember the keyboard shortcut. Keyboard shortcut is GW for create a carbon copy. And I want a carbon copy of plate profile 2. I'm going to press escape here or right click on the keyboard, or on the mouse, excuse me, not the keyboard. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if this works here. I'm going to reference plate profile 2, and I'm going to reference its, okay, you can't reference its attachment, so I'm going to reference, where would that be here? Placement. And I want to reference its placement on the Z-axis. Yep, not angle. Definitely not angle. I want to reference base Z. And we can see that that's 2 millimeters in the Z direction. And now I want to subtract. Before I move on, I should say how I found out how to say placement in base Z. Base Z is going to be where it's located on the Z-axis. And I referenced placement because of this group of variables here that I'll expand after I'm done editing this expression. So now I'm going to subtract the variable of plate offset 2, because I'm subtracting 1.8 millimeters. And as you can see, it is 0.7 millimeters offset. So there you have it. But how I knew to reference base X or base Z is because this Z variable here, as you can see, is 0.7 millimeters because of this attachment offset from 0 millimeters on the Z-axis. And I knew to reference placement because they're grouped in this placement object here. And I knew to reference the base Z object. So now that that's taken care of, I'm going to close this sketch. I'm going to rename this to plate profile 2. And I'm going to add copy. Now there's only one and final sketch left to implement here, and that's going to be just on the good old XY plane. So I don't need to edit any offsets here, but what I do need to do is, what I'm going to end up doing is hiding these sketches. And I want to reference some external geometry from this sketch. So I'm going to press GX on the keyboard, reference this line, and now I'm going to view normal. or view section, excuse me, not normal. And I'm going to generate a 2-point rectangle again. Now, on my Smart Dimension tool, I'm going to get the vertical distance from these 2 points here. And that's going to be stacking offset 3, not stacking, plate offset 3 of 0.7 millimeters. I'm going to do the same thing here for this horizontal distance. And that's going to be plate offset 3 again. And just going to reformat this dimension to make it more readable. I'm going to go to my Smart Dimension tool, constrained by these 2 points, and that's going to be my base plate grid pitch minus 2 times plate offset 1 and plate offset 3. I don't need to subtract plate offset 2 because there wasn't any horizontal change, only a vertical change for that offset. As you can see by these two 45-degree triangles, I only need to move in this X dimension variable when there's an angle associated with it. So 36.3 millimeters sounds about right to me. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. And as you start to do this repetitively, you can sort of get into a nice groove and things start to happen much faster. Right click on the keyboard, on the mouse, I keep saying keyboard, add my fillets. Make them all equal by pressing that E key on the keyboard. And just going to press KO to add a diameter. And this diameter is going to be fillet diameter 3 of 2.3 millimeters. Takes it out of that tool. Now I'm going to close the sketch. And if I look on the front view, you can see how there's no attachment offset from the XY plane for this, because I want it on the XY plane. And I'm going to rename this sketch to plate profile 3. So I'll re-show all these sketches here, even my block here. I'll resize it to fit the window by pressing VF on the keyboard. And now what I'd like to do is select this body here. What I'm going to do is create a subtractive loft. Okay. And similarly to lofts, additive lofts, I want this to be a ruled surface, meaning that there's no curves associated between the different profiles. So I'm going to add a couple of sections. I'm going to add section 2, a copy of section 2, and profile 3. And I'm going to click OK. And we have our outline, just like this base plate design here of 1 unit. So we'll do some more fun stuff next week. But until then, I hope you have a great day. Please, if you're enjoying this content, like and subscribe for more. It only helps the channel. It only allows me to give you more content that you want. I have a pretty big plan that I'm going to do with a Gridfinity base plate and Gridfinity boxes that should be pretty cool, and I hope you tune in to see it, because I'm going to take you through a little bit of an assembly design later on in a different series using Gridfinity. So please like and subscribe for more. If you found this helpful, share it with a friend that's trying to learn FreeCAD. Thank you.